So the word that we're using here, or the word that's been used, is adititana, parami, so those are the 10 perfections, and adititana. So I'm not a Buddhist scholar at all, so I'm just reading and learning, and I also really like to go back to the actual word and see, like, where does that come from and what are different translations and what it means. So adi means higher, and tana means taking a stand, so literally standing. Isn't that interesting? So that's like kind of came up in how we describe this, is like, I'm taking a stand. Yeah, so this is like, here I am. Yeah. And that's, I think it's a really good description for determination. Yeah, so it's like, here I am, this is what I stand for, this is what's important for me, and I will not move away. Yeah, so kind of that is kind of the sense. But what is also interesting, so because I don't know if any of you have noticed that, but like, for example, you will be very determined to have a daily meditation practice. Yeah, and then you have that for 2 or 3 days, and then it just, yeah, people can relate to that. Yes, so very common. So what's very interesting here is a quote from Daisaku Ikeda. So he is the man who founded the Sokai Gakkai branch of Buddhism organization in Japan. And he said, so even if you have the tendency to make a determination but only stick to it for 2 or 3 days, it is okay as long as you keep refreshing that determination. Isn't that nice? Yeah, so that is a nice way, right? Because we can come back, and that comes back to we're not perfect. It's not about perfection. It's about practicing and being aware and saying like, oh, I can pick it back up again. Yeah. And so sometimes, so the term in the teachings, it's called like unshakable determination. It's kind of intimidating, that term, isn't it? And so, and it's kind of like as a determination that when shaken, it doesn't shake us. And what we can do is, we don't have to worry that we have to be perfect with our determination. Yeah, because sometimes we can fall into like, oh, because I know I can stick with it, I can just not do it at all. Yeah. But so I can invite the sense of determination in, yeah, and just know I will slip at some point, and that's not a problem. So I can be determined that doesn't deter me from starting over again. And I think that's really important in every single meditation. Isn't that true? In every single meditation, I'm sitting down, I'm going like, I'll be as mindful as I can. And then 30 seconds later, it's like, ooh, and then, ooh. Yeah, and yes, that happens to anybody else. Yeah, don't bother, right? Yes, so, but the determination is that I know I will, right, get lost in thinking, or will, whatever the mind does. And I'm determined to, whenever I notice that, I will bring it back. Something like that. And that is determination. And so I practice with determination. And my determination also is to create space for practice. Yeah, and this is again something that is often hard. Yeah, so we know we want to do it, and then life gets in the way, and it's hard, right? And then often, as the busier we get, the harder it is to keep our practice up. Even though we know, I'm sure you have said this, I've heard this so many times, I've said it so many times, is I need my practice the most when I'm busy and when I'm stressed. And then as there's a tendency that that's the least likely that I'll do it. Yeah, because I have this idea, oh, if I only like study another half an hour or like work for another hour, right, then I will get the results that I want. Yeah, which I know, at least like from, if you're studying for something, that's not how that works. Yeah, how you actually get more into your head or understand more or retain more information is by taking breaks and meditating. so that your whole system has time to digest that. And let me see. So a really good example of determination in this practice is the Buddha's stepmom. And so legend says that the Buddha's mother died at his birth, and so she died in childbirth, and then his aunt raised him. And then she ended up in the end, so then there's this whole story of, you might have heard that the Buddha left, and actually left his family, also left his wife and a newborn child in order to gain enlightenment, or in order to find out the end of suffering. Yeah, and like there we often have discussions around that. Is that okay to do that, right? But what happened is, so after he gained enlightenment, he came back to his family, and both his son and his stepmom ordained. So they he became a monk and she became a nun. And what was really interesting, and why I bring this up around determination, is up to that point there was no nuns order. There were only men who were allowed to go forth into, they call that, go forth into homelessness, and to be a renunciate and just practice. Yeah? And so back in the day, actually doing that had huge implications, because that meant, right, so in particular for women, that meant, and obviously like her stepmom was a bit older, but if you would ordain, or that was your only chance to avoid having like giving birth every year. And the responsibility, and of course the burden that took on the body, and taking care of a big family. So that was the only chance when that women could step out of that role. And so the story goes that so the stepmom took like a group of other women and said like, we want to be ordained. And they went to the Buddha and said, can we please be ordained? And the Buddha said no. And why not? Because you're women. And I mean, that was 2,600 years ago. And then she wouldn't take no for an answer. And so she went back and said, can we please be ordained? And the Buddha said no. And then there are two versions of the story that I know. So one is like, if you ask the Buddha something 3 times, he has to say yes. So basically you prove your determination, yeah, which is like, that's interesting, talking about determination. And the other is, and maybe it was a combination of the two, was that she said, so can a woman attain enlightenment? And the Buddha said, yes, she can. And then she said, so why can't we be ordained? He said, okay. But the story really is that her determination, her just like, I want this, this is the path I want to practice, this is what I want to dedicate my life to, got her to get what she wanted and really start the nuns order. Yeah, so I think that's actually quite a nice story. After, please, sorry, yeah. And so when we're thinking about it, right, and you touched on that earlier about with Erewhon and like all the beautiful things around us, yeah, and then so we can think about like there are definitely, speaking for myself, there are definitely external things. I feel very determined that I want that, or I think if I have that, then, right, I'd be more at ease, or I'd be like happier, I'd be like more, whatever that is, yeah. And we also know, I think we're all old enough to have had that and then have gotten that and realized that was not it, yeah. So that doesn't bring the happiness, the contentment, the peace that we hoped it would. Maybe it did for a while, yeah. And again, like it's not about dissing that, but it's really this idea is like, where do we find stability? Yeah, coming back to this term of like, where do we find solid ground in a world that is unreliable and always changing? Yeah, where we, like so many things, as we know, are out of our control, whether we like it or not. And it's really hard for us to realize that or to be with that. Yeah, which is like when I was here 2 weeks ago, and I think Guru also talked about that last week, is like, which is why we want to develop and grow the quality of equanimity. It's just like, yeah, I can hold that. I can hold the truth that things will change. And so was quite interesting. So there is a sutta where the Buddha talks about like what a wise person is good to be resolved in. Yeah, so if you're a wise person, these are things that you would deepen. And the 4 things are wisdom, truth, letting go, and peace. Yeah, and again, like just for time's sake, we don't have time to unpack all of them, but actually wisdom is, we talked about that here, truth we talked about here, and peace or equanimity, we also talked about that, yeah? And another definition also of the wise person, so regardless of these 4 different aspects that the Buddha said, so what actually is a wise person? And I love this definition. So he says, a wise person is concerned for the welfare of self, for the welfare of others, for the welfare of self and others, and the welfare of the whole world. Isn't that nice? Now, so I say it again. It's concerned for the welfare of self, concerned for the welfare of others, concerned of the welfare of self and others, yeah, so us together, and the welfare of the whole world. Yeah, so it is not an either or, but it's really this idea is like we want to have like this 360 perspective of, is what I'm doing, is that of benefit? Yeah. And and we know it's not always easy to find that, but if we can keep that in mind, yeah, to ask, is this good for the others, but not to leave myself out. But also not saying like, I'll just take what I need and I don't care about the rest. Yeah. And so, and what we need for that is really, we need clarity. Yeah, we need clarity to see clearly, because sometimes I don't know. Yeah, it's confusing. Living this life is confusing. Making choices is confusing. Kind of knowing what's the right thing to do in this situation. Is this really beneficial or is this not beneficial? Yeah, which is like, it's less about like feeling uncomfortable. I mean, I don't know, like sometimes it feels so we're so obsessed with feeling comfortable all the time. But I honestly, my experiences with like at least the people that are around me or I work with, they're very willing to be uncomfortable in order to make things right, yeah, or change things. So it's not like, oh, I have to be like nice and cozy all the time and it's all about me. But like there's so many people who say like, I'm okay to be uncomfortable, but I don't know, is this the right thing to do? So the confusion around that. And the thing with that is the practice helps us over time to see more clearly. Yeah? For those of you who've been practicing, do you feel you see at least a little bit more clearly about what's wise, what's skillful, what's harmful, yeah, in a way that you haven't before? Definitely my experience, yeah? And I still feel very confused, so don't get me wrong, after in areas where just like, what's the right thing to do? And I also, and here we come back to determination, and this is like, the determination for me is I am determined to stick with the practice as long as I live. Who knows, right? But like, I've been with this for a while, so there's a good chance I will keep sticking with it, because I know it gives me more clarity. And I know it gives me more tools in this area of is I do take better care of myself. I do love myself more. But I'm also more concerned about others. And I'm also more concerned about relationships, what happens in relationships. And I'm also more concerned, I mean, I feel like I was always very concerned about the welfare of the world, but even more so, it feels that way. Yeah, so it gives this, like, I become more permeable in one way, but also more stable or more steady to say, like, I'm willing to go in there. I'm willing to be uncomfortable with the unknown. Yeah. And where does that come from? It comes from the practice. It comes from deepening, coming back to really showing up, sitting down, coming back to like, oh, hello, like unwanted thoughts, right? So, and oh, hello, like back pain or all of this. So we're deep in the practice over time. And it comes that we need the determination to keep coming back and to not get lost, or when we get lost, to find ourselves back to the practice, because we will get lost. Yeah, and then we have this moment where we're waking up saying, wait, well, when did I last meditate? Like, how did that happen? Yeah, and then not be hard on ourselves, but to come back. And then to just to say something about kind of the vulnerability or the fragility, I think really, and maybe I already spoke to that with what I was saying, it is so much about, for me, has something very much to do with the truth piece. Yeah, so I want to become more and more, and I have become more and more who I truly am. So first, and there are these different layers. So one layer is this layer of like, I want to be able to see who I am without the projections and expectations of starting with my parents, and of the expectations of the culture that I grew up, yeah, the culture that I surround myself. So that is the first step. You say, like, who am I actually? Do I buy into all of that, what I've been taught, or what people have been telling me I should be doing, I shouldn't be doing? And then what the practice also does, it then starts to break this even further down. Can people relate to that? So it's like, first it was like, more like societies or my parents' product, right? And then I start chiseling away, and then I become more who I am. And then this is Christiane, and I don't do these things or don't do these things. But then what the practice does, it makes me more, and this comes really more to the sense of like vulnerability, is I'm so much more willing to not know who I am, not know what the right thing to do is, like not having answers, and letting go into really something bigger that I can't even put words to. Does that make sense, kind of what I'm pointing to? Yes? Okay, thank you. It's just like what I'm talking about. And I really believe that's what we need in the world right now. We need more of that. Yeah? And we need to show up and like kind of expose this kind of knowing or this kind of energy, or expose other people to that. And hope that something will kind of ripple or resonate or change. And my experience is it does. Yeah, it does. People start to wake up and be interested and start to do this work. So, all right, so I have a lot more, but not tonight. All right, so, okay, you get a poem for the end. So let's just sit for a moment and I'll read a closing poem. So this is a poem by William Stafford, and it's called The Way It Is. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it is hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. Thank you. Thank you for your kind attention.